handout. So my name is Andrew Capillotti. I'm a principal with Boylston Properties. I'd like to thank you all for coming this evening. With me tonight here representing the development team is Bill McQuillan, Mark DeShanes, our attorney Bill York, Tom Wilder from the Wilder Companies, Celine Lassard Brandt, who's with Boylston, Eric Brown, and Laura Courtney with PCA. Before we begin and kind of get into Building G, I just want to talk a little bit about where we are in the project. Maybe you can see outside, we've started to rapidly take down the old sections of the mall, the 1983 edition. Just a couple of weeks ago, we finally closed with our equity partner, JP Morgan, and our debt partner, Wells Fargo. And that everything that you see here on this map, buildings A, B2, B1, C, D, E, and F, have all been approved through the site plan special review process through the planning board. Just last week, we went back in for building CD, and actually this small building here, E2, which is a small glass retail structure. Tonight, we're here to present our thoughts on Building G, which is that building up there in the corner. Before we begin, I'd like to ask Tom Wilder to talk a little bit about the retail leasing and some of the announcements we've made to date and some of the progress that we've had on getting the retail program going.
Thanks, Andrew. Good evening, everybody. How are you?
Well.
Maybe we could just flip. I'm going to be brief, but I'm sure you've seen the press release, and we announced some of our key tenants. We're very excited because they fit perfectly into our vision for Arsenal Yards. Roach Brothers is doing a 32,000 square foot grocery store. And you've seen one of their newer concepts in Downtown Crossing. They do a fabulous job. It's really high level of design. Lots of prepared foods, cafe seating, high level of service. That always comes with Roach Brothers. So we're really excited to have them part of the project. Again, kind of they fit with our vision of the best of the regional and local players here. Also, we announced our movie theater, and our movie theater is again a boutique theater, upscale recliners, 725 seats. 100% of the seats will be recliners, so it'll be really a great movie experience. It's a little smaller. Again, we desired to have it a little bit smaller because we're building a neighborhood here beyond. It's not just a shopping center. This is a real neighborhood, so we want to be careful of pedestrian traffic, vehicular traffic. Typically a movie theater would be 14 screens and those 2,000 seats. This is a smaller scale, and the operator that we selected is really well versed in this kind of more upscale presentation. So we're really excited to have them as part of the project. We also announced a couple of restaurants. CityWorks out of Chicago, great player. It's kind of a great kind of gastro pub, they call it. Better quality food and great kind of family experience. And they do really a terrific job. They have 7 units in the Chicago area. This is their first one on the East Coast. We're so excited to have them as part of the project as well. We also announced Ulta, great, women's fragrance, health and beauty, etc. So one of the hottest really retailers in the country. We're happy to have them as part of the project. There'll be lots of others to come. We did do a deal with Shake Shack. It's probably our one national restaurant, I'd say, at this stage. But really, the desire is to find the best of the local chef-driven restaurants. And so we can put that for a second. We've created some amazing opportunities for the restaurants. And that's just the way of these developments today. They're less apparel-centric. There's more dining, entertainment, open space. So it's far more today about the social experience than it is just pure commerce. And so that's why we've spent a lot of time, and I know some of you have seen these before, but spent a lot of time creating some very cool restaurant locations in the middle of the 2 residential buildings in the middle. There's a very cool shared street, we call it, that's meant to have lots of cafe seating, and they're at, on the weekends we can close it off so we can have markets or, acoustic music or things like that happen. We also created, one of our favorite areas is the courtyard. It's the river court that leads to the park. It's about 110 feet wide. There'll be restaurants on either side. Actually, that's where Shake Shack is going, right here. And we've talked to some great local restaurants for that corner space there next to Roach Brothers. So we couldn't be more excited about the progress. The announcement was perfect timing. We announced just before we had our shopping center convention out in Las Vegas early in May. So the momentum has been terrific, and so we're really pushing this summer to try to lock in some more of those key tenants. We do have one other area that we're focusing on, and that's our fitness. And we decided to do, instead of one large club, we're doing the studios. So we actually created another brand here that's called the Arsenal Fitness. So it's a collection of studios, so it'll have Pure Barre and spin and yoga and things like that. So I think that's about the update for now. You'll probably see lots more announcements coming out over the summer. So thank you. I'll be around afterwards if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Tom. For those of you who don't know who Boylston Properties is, I'd like to spend just a minute. Boylston Properties, Bill McQuillan started it 35 years ago, and almost 20 years ago bought their first project in Watertown. So they've been in the community since 1999. 134 Coolidge Ave, the Lynx building across the way at 490 Arsenal Way, the Residence Inn across the Marriott Residence Inn across the street, and now the Arsenal Mall, which Boylston has owned for the last 5 years. So why are we here? We're here tonight to talk about Building G. We're here tonight to talk about making Building G taller. And we've given everybody who has come in sort of a set of FAQs. We ran out. Celine is out making 15 additional copies, and I think that this document will hopefully answer a lot of the questions that you might have tonight. We're, again, more than happy to answer them all again and talk about them in some more detail. But if you did not get a copy of these FAQs, when Celine comes back in with 15 more, we'll make sure that everybody leaves tonight with this document. So I'd like to turn it over to Eric Brown from Krelwich-Chalinsky, who will talk about the proposal.
Great crowd tonight. Thank you all for coming. A lot of interest in the project. That's really nice to see. We appreciate that. So as Andrew said, we're here to talk about Building G. I guess I'd say that there's probably lots of questions, and we should really hold those to the end, and we'll make sure we've had a process in other community meetings where we kind of go across the room, orderly way, so everyone knows they'll have a chance to talk or ask questions. So if we can hold your comments till the end. So one thing I want to do is get you oriented. Unfortunately, our master plan and our floor plan are not in the same orientation. So you can see there, Building G is located here. Behind Building F, next to the park. Down here is the river and Greeno Boulevard. Home Depot is over this way. Okay, so that's the orientation of the building. And this is actually twisted. So now north is up, the river's down here. Everybody okay with that? Okay, good. So this is a really important drawing because this drawing tells the story of the reduced footprint of the building. Same size building, same gross square footage, same number of units, smaller footprint, and taller building. And so that's really key because what we were doing, the approved plan is the red dotted line here, and it shows how really it was kind of close to Building F, 24 feet. And with the reconfigured building, now at the tightest point, we're 47 feet. So it's basically twice as far from the building, which enables a lot more open space, pedestrian access, light and air. And so that's really the whole purpose of this. Taller building, more light and air really for the pedestrians, more inviting experience coming in from the parking lots, more inviting experience going through the park and through. So this drawing kind of explains all of that, the reconfiguration. On the upper floors, this basically is just a typical upper floor. shows again, we're nice and far away from building F. What this kind of shows, now, we've only taken kind of a stab at the building. We're showing what could be built there. We needed to test it. We needed to test the units, the configuration, the access. Actually, let's go back one slide, something I want to talk about, which was the use of this space. So when we were tight here, we really only had minimal access for service and fire truck access. Now that we're opening this up, this becomes a nice, pleasant entrance for the residential building here. Vehicles can come in and turn back, and also a truck can turn in and kind of get into this loading area. So it's much more generous, much more usable. This was kind of tight. We talked about when we were describing other buildings in this process during the master plan, sort of this proportion of width to height, and a narrow space with tall buildings is not that inviting. So we really wanted to open this up and make this a much more usable area for the building. So again, this is an upper floor. The way we've started to design this building is that we have the cores in the more unoccupied spaces facing building F. And so we have buildings ringing the bar. We have one unit that is only having views of building F, but this enabled us to get most of the units kind of facing out and getting great views. Okay, so this is the approved building, the approved massing. And it's a cool building, we designed it, but the proportions are kind of bulky still. I don't know if anybody goes to Washington, D.C., how often they have a zoning restriction of 10 stories because of the airport and because of the military and stuff. And Washington, D.C. has these blocky, chopped off buildings everywhere, and just a kind of an uncomfortable proportion. This also shows how narrow this is in between building F. It's a little bit dark. Okay, next. And so our new building not only has more light and air between the buildings, but we really believe that the proportions are much more elegant. It's a prettier building. The proportions are more vertical. And so we just think that this will be a benefit to the park, benefit to the community, having a little bit more of a prettier building there. This shows it without the dotted line. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is, buildings are experienced, most people, pedestrians, at the ground floor. When you're walking by the building, you're experiencing, 20 feet, 30 feet. And when we flip to the next building, next view, you can see that you're really not experiencing the height of the building. You're experiencing the space around the building and the materials and the detailing around that building in the first couple stories. So the benefit, you can see for yourself. The experience at the ground floor is much richer with this configuration. This is a view looking toward the west. This building really is kind of indicates this was basically more of a service area. Now the building the entrance is facing this way. And when we open it up, now it becomes a pedestrian area. It's a more inviting space. We could see that this could be spilling out some of the amenities. This could enliven and activate the plaza and the courtyard. More access through here. Just a nicer entrance. This is a view we know people are probably interested, from Greenville Boulevard. This is a view of the building peeking out above the trees. But again, with the lines of the building and the materials, we think it'll be a slender, pristine building just peeking out. This is a view from Arsenal Street looking back. This is the approved design where you basically can't see the building G over building F. And now you can just start to see it sort of peeking out. The red line indicates the height of the previously approved From the park, you see again, this bulky form was the dotted line. Now we have a pretty elegant building. Laura Porton has done the shadow study, so I'm going to let her talk about it in a little bit of detail.
Celine has come back in with more of these FAQs. If you don't have one, two here. Anybody else?
Okay, never mind. It's only one.
I also just wanted to make one additional point about the advantages of kind of separating this building a little bit further from building F. With the 24-foot separation that we previously had, it required the north wall of building G to be much more opaque due to fire separation requirements. So by pushing this to the 46 feet, we are also able to get a lot more glass and light in this kind of 20-foot area that you experience as a pedestrian. So it makes for a lighter building at the ground plane, which wasn't possible in the closer to the donut scheme, which is how we refer to what is currently approved. So then, to quickly talk about shadows, and bear with me while I try and work some magic on this computer. I know that this is probably a topic that most people are very interested in. And interestingly enough, it's interesting to me, I don't know if it'll be interesting to you. The building G proposal actually does not impose a bigger shadow footprint onto the park, onto public land, due to the fact that the footprint of the donut building was so massive. It actually created a significant, it's not a significant shadow, but a shadow that is very similar to the taller proposed scheme. So you can see this is the equinox meeting in September, or March and September, at 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. You can see as the shadow moves, the red dashed line is the footprint of the approved donut scheme. And then you can see the shadow of the taller scheme. It extends past it kind of onto the Arsenal property, but is not a larger footprint than the donut scheme. The one thing to note is that it's a little hard to understand, but the height of the building G stops short of building F. It does extend a little bit over in the taller scheme, but in general, the proportions of the shadows are the same as they move across. And then once they get onto the Arsenal Yards property.
Could you just explain what time of the year and time of day?
Yep, so this is, so this is I think it's the equinox, March and September 21st, 9 a.m., 12 p.m. And then the later ones, no, I don't want to print it, I'm sorry. Wrong control, there we go. The later ones are 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. We all know we live here, it's dark already. But that comes into play in June when it's luckily not dark yet. So you can see as the shadow moves off of the park area, it only cuts a very small portion and is the same from the approved to the proposed. June is slightly different. You can see here, this is June. Let me so this is 9 a.m. This is the difference, and this is the only time of year and only time of day that there is a difference between the shadows of the taller scheme versus the donut. As soon as you move into, I believe, 11 o'clock, you're already off of the park and onto this area. The big thing to note is that throughout the year, the shadow within this area in the approved scheme is completely, the alleyway is completely in shadow with the approved scheme. The taller scheme allows us to get a lot more light into that alleyway in between the two buildings. So, again, didn't know if that was interesting to y'all, but it was very interesting to me when we did these studies. And then finally, you can look at December. So we typically take our shadows at March and September because they're the same time. June and December to kind of mark the different times of the year and see the impacts across the site. So this is similar to the shadow study that we had shown for building F earlier. So that is generally the shadows. And then just quickly, I don't know, Eric, if you want to talk about this, but this is the development program, just to show you that the taller building is not a bigger building. The square footage and the unit types are the same. So we went from 188,000 square feet to approximately 188,000 square feet. We were just able to extract it up and keep it at the 122. So we're going from 12 stories to 18 stories, 129, which the approved is 130, to 197. And then Andrew, I don't know if you want to talk about the design guidelines.
Sure. So in an effort to, let me back up a little bit. So what we are showing you here is probably what's not going to get built. And I say that because we are going to engage a condo developer to partner with us. And that condo developer is going to have a tremendous amount of input and say into what that exterior building looks like. But I think it's important for the purposes of understanding what 197 feet looks like versus what 130 feet looks like. We put some architecture to that building, and PCA has worked with us on kind of shaping the building to fit the site and to be within the 200 front riverfront setback and to be within our setbacks. But in an effort to make sure that when we go out and engage a development partner, they understand what it is that we are committing to here with the town of Watertown, we've put together some Building G design guidelines. Most importantly, we're talking about materiality, glazing, massing, and a program, sort of the 4 key tenets of the overall building design. Not only did we want to do this, but both our equity and debt partner, JP Morgan and Wells Fargo, are very concerned about what it is that we are going to be doing on that G parcel, because these buildings, A, B, C, D, E, and F, represent a significant investment on behalf of both of those 2 entities. So this is something that we will work through as we work the process with the planning board to get to a building that I think everybody in town would be proud of. So it's important to understand that this is one idea of what that tower, that taller building could look like. It's important to note that we are not committing to this specific design. So I want to make one additional point before we open it up for questions. Eric talked earlier about the slide is probably here, about making this a better pedestrian connection. And we think that that pedestrian connection to the park is important because we believe that a lot of people who are coming to Arsenal Yards, who are coming here just to experience Arsenal Park, will take advantage of the parking that exists here. They're more than welcome to park in the F garage. Put the site plan back up on the other. They're more than welcome to park in the F garage. They're more than willing to park in the B1 or B2, I have a mental block, in the B2 garage and access the park back here. But we think that this parking opportunity back there represents a great way to park here and to get yourself right into Arsenal Park. So creating this much wider pedestrian access point, we think is an important part of the project. So, created these FAQs. I'm sure we have eliminated just about every question that you might have in the room.
Thank you all for coming.
But we will, I think the way to do this in an orderly fashion is we will start at this side of the room, and we will work our way around.
Andrew, how about some elected officials first?
Yes.
Town councilors.
Town councilors. I know I saw Councilor Woodland. I know I saw Councilor Bays. Councilor Canellis. Why don't you, would you like to ask the first question?
I apologize for arriving late, so I open it up to the residents, and I'm delighted to hear all of the comments, and then take
You're not
all
going to
of
leave
the-
without asking a question, I hope.
Most certainly not.
Good. Excellent.
Well, Andy, I mean, your district.
Any other,
Counselor Donato, Andrew.
Counselor Donato?
Anthony, raise your hand.
Thank you.
Lisa Felder, I can't see you. I know you're here right next to Anthony. Caitlin and Columbus here. Everybody's here. I can't see everybody, so. Just jump up and down.
Kenny Woodlands.
Okay, he said Kenny.
All right, well, start right here.
Hi, I'm Tammy. I am the facility manager of the Commander's Mansion. Can you tell me exactly where the mansion is here? Are we all the way to the left?
Where is it?
So it's off this page. So here's the baseball diamond at the park, and you're about here.
So am I gonna see some of the building? What's nice?
You know, that's a good question. We haven't studied it from that exact.
Oh,
Absolutely, you'll see the building.
yeah, why not?
In the winter, you'll see it.
You'll see it.
And I don't know if we have a, maybe the map back there, but yes, you will see that is the building that's approved, that building there. You will either see that building or you will see this building. Yes?
Yeah, where is the parking for this building? Is it underneath?
The parking, yeah, good question.
Condos.
Yes, yep. We can go back to the site plan.
How do I get the other one?
You have to click on it?
The parking for this condo building is located on the bottom floor of the F garage. There are
Okay, so it's near the F garage.
It's, we go to a site plan, it's easier if we go to a site plan. This building here, this F building, is one level of below-grade parking, which is dedicated, 134 spaces, which is dedicated to that building.
So you only have one parking spot for,
Well, right now, it's 122 units. The second option, and an option we believe is most likely to happen, is that we will extend this garage below grade to include a below-grade footprint under G, which would allow you to come down in the elevator, down into the garage level, if this was the core of the building, and walk either, the vehicles here and then vehicles there. We think that by connecting this garage to that garage, that we add approximately 40 spaces. So that would give us 174 parking spaces for 122 units.
Andrew, get her telephone number, she could be a buyer.
okay.
Okay?
They're all underground.
Yes, yes. The parking spaces in these two above-grade garages are meant for, primarily for retail tenants. Got some dedicated parking in this building for Roach. We have apartments on top of the F building, and those apartments have some dedicated nested parking all the way on the top floor. We're kind of working our way, yes?
Thank you. For your attendance, I am an elected official. I have been representing Watertown, I hate to say, over 40 years. I was the youngest town meeting member, served 28 years
Marilyn,
on...
speak up, please.
Okay, I just wanted to say that I have been elected over 40 years in Watertown. I was a town meeting member, the youngest, those are the days, and 28, almost 30 years on the town council. And I represent Watertown and 32 towns and cities from A to Back Bay on the governor's council. I'm very concerned about this, and I'm going to leave it up to the other people to ask about space and how much the condos are going to cost and traffic and all of that. I'm concerned about public safety, okay? And you're talking about a 197-foot building. And our fire department has a ladder truck that really can only go up to 70 feet. If it went perfectly straight, it could go 100, but that's impossible. So it's 70 feet, okay? So you're going to say, oh, we have sprinklers. Well, they did in 9/11 too. And you want our firefighters to go up, how many stories would this be?
That would be 18.
18, with 50, 60 pounds on their back. And I want it to be noted in the minutes, we're understaffed. And East Watertown is very in danger with public safety because 80% of the time, there's only 2 firefighters on an apparatus. And that is well below OSHA standards or any standards at all. And when they go to another town or city, guess what? They send them back, because they say, they don't need two people, they're of no use. And that's the truth, and I'm telling you fact. And we've got to realize that they are in danger. And the ladder truck is out of service and all of that. But I'm concerned about the height and what you're expecting of our firefighters to go up how many flights of stairs with all this weight on their back, and they're understaffed. Okay, when I was a town meeting member, we had 125 firefighters. Okay, let's go back, we'll say 1970, 125. Got 67, maybe 68 sometimes, it varies. We're in danger, but it seems like in this form of government, public safety is not a priority, but it should be. We lost a firefighter this past year, okay, because it was the second fire in 2 days that he fought. And you know what it is to try to take down a wall? And he had a heart attack and died. And I'm concerned about this building and our firefighters and what you're expecting them to do. And it's impossible. This is impossible to do. So I'm sure everybody will talk about other things, but I know this subject. My husband was a firefighter for 32 years. I know it. I wasn't a firefighter, but I know it. And I'm telling you, this is wrong. It doesn't fit. And we're not Boston. We're not Boston. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Yes?
My name's Mike, I'm from East Watertown. I'm addressing your fact question number 15 about opening up all of Watertown to high-rise development. And I understand that this is for the RMUD.
Correct.
Which abuts to the new Watertown Cambridge Greenway that we're finishing up here soon, hopefully. It seems that would open up the opportunity to have 200 feet of buildings, not right up against it, of course. We know there's easements and so on. But, and we have houses and single-family dwellings not too far from that. And it seems to me that if we've gone from 5 stories in the area. We're looking at 12. We're looking at 18 now, and I think that is of concern to me. I just want you to think about that, for those of you in the area. What does 18 stories look like? We have nothing compared to it. Can you tell me how high the smokestack is across the way?
Smokestack, no, but
Well, I can tell you that if you're familiar with the
Perkins.
Yeah,
Perkins
Perkins.
Tower, we have it about 180 feet.
Okay.
The Perkins
So
Tower, so this is a little taller than Perkins and Tufts. The building on Robert Street is 155 feet.
And if you're familiar with the complex, just to start developments over by Alewife Square, Alewife T, that's they're about 22 stories. So that gives you another perspective. It's 4 stories shorter, certainly, but it's not just 4 stories, and so we have to be wary of what we say. I also noticed that you're talking about wind at ground level, and I assume that if you're going to really bring this before the board, that you do a nice PLW between the two, right? We're going to have an idea of what the ground level comfort is.
Correct.
And like I said, it's just, it sounds like we're going to start a tower war here if we go to 197 feet, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yes.
My name is Judy, and I'm also an East Watertown resident. You say that this is not a residential area, and that is incorrect. There are residences in this area. I live in Arsenal Park condominiums. This will greatly affect our skyline and our view. It's a historical building that I live in, built in 1816, along with the Commander's Mansion and the tower at Perkins. These are fine historical pieces that represent what we know and love about Watertown. And to put in a monstrosity like this, and you keep talking about the donut and the chunky thing and saying this is sleek and elegant. That's all ad speak.
Well,
That's-
Judy, I think.
You know, this cuts off our view, our sunlight.
Well, Judy, I would argue that the view in and out of the park is much more dramatically affected by a building that is almost 30 feet wider at 130 feet. And I think that the shadow studies have showed from a sunlight and from a light and air sort of perspective, we're talking about less mass that hits the ground, more sunlight that hits the ground. And I think the shadow studies
hits
did a
the
very good
skyline.
job of demonstrating that.
I'm gonna look out of my apartment and see a building. I don't now.
Why are we adding all these if we're keeping the same amount? I mean, what is the reason from doing this, I guess? Because it says we're not doing it for money, yet I see that studio apartments have gone away. You're talking about parking spaces, and it looks like you're increasing 2 and 3 bedroom places. You're gonna have, I don't know too many here that probably have only 1 car in their household at this point.
Again, I think that reducing the mass of building that hits the ground and replacing, squeezing the building in and extruding it up makes for a better experience at the ground. We can disagree with each other, but I think that what we're talking about is a building that instead of being that and taking up a tremendous amount of mass, has become a lot narrower and a lot sleeker, and yes, it's a little taller. And to Laura's earlier point, it allows this face of the building to become much glassier and more open, and improving that pedestrian experience. Again, we'll kind of move on. Actually, I'm sorry, this gentleman here in the yellow, and then we'll work our way.
Hi, my name is Matt. I'm also a resident of East Watertown, and I just wanted to come out to hear the explanation and let people know that I support this amendment. I really am a big believer in green space, and I like that there's going to be more ability on the ground to have green space, and I like that the people who live in this area are going to have easy access to mass transit. You know, we have this bus corridor on Arsenal Street, and contra to the thing that one of the more recent speakers said, you know, I have a child, I have a spouse, our family has 1 car, and we have no plans to get a second one, and I think that that's true for a lot of younger people who might be expected to move into a new development like this. And so I don't think at all that you know, that every single person who wants a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom unit is gonna feel like they need 2 cars, especially with the transit access and all the amenities that are right here. So, you know, I hear that there's a lot of people, even so far already, who just don't wanna see a building, and it doesn't make sense to me because this is an area where there are buildings and there's other, you know, Western Mass doesn't have a lot of buildings, and if you wanna never see a building, you can, you know, this is close into an urban area.
Come on, I never want to see a huge building that tall.
Okay, but it's
I'm
narrower.
used to seeing buildings. But that doesn't make any difference from the perspective.
Well, you'll see it either way. It's narrower, it's taller. I don't understand what the
The
problem is.
reduction in footprint. The footprint goes from just under 15,000 feet to a little over 10. So that 30% reduction is about 4,000 square feet of building or less mass that touches the ground. And again, in this area, in this condition, we think that's significant.
Can I just suggest that we're all a community, and everyone has a right to their opinion, and we should let people speak, not argue. If you want to argue after, it's okay, but let's please give everyone a right to speak without feeling intimidated. Thank you.
So again, we'll get to the other side of the room, I promise.
Yes, so my name is David Mark, I live in North Beacon Street, just up in Perkins. Yes, you keep discussing how it keeps the mass, you know, the bloat or the width down, you up. Well, who said, when this was originally conceived of back for Building G, it seemed too big around anyways. So was it the plan originally for Boylston and Associates to pack it like this and say, oh, this doesn't look good later?
Well,
So let's make it look better by going vertical? Does it have to be so wide originally?
So I recently joined the development team, and I know that as even a couple of years ago, we had said to the community, look, we think we're gonna come back to talk about building G. So I don't think that this is a surprise.
I'm just saying the height, I don't like the way, the argument is keep the volume the same, squeeze it down and go up, because it looks bad if we don't go up.
Right. Well, again, at the end of the day, if the community, and through the planning process, if we can't convince you that this is a better building, and we believe that the taller building is a better building, then we will construct that building there.
So it's either the fat, short one or the long skinny one?
Again, the 186,000 square feet is important to the project. It's important to create 122 condominium units, 19 of which are affordable in this scenario. And I think that's an important point, and it creates home ownership in this development. If we've got 300 apartments, we can add 122 condos. So, yes.
Is it me?
Yeah, go ahead. We know.
My understanding is the farther the view, the higher the price. And that's one of the reasons for this. And some of us, many of us have long memories. In fact, memories that go back to before we moved here, or even before we were born. But it's interesting to note that people are going to live here and look across the river, to what was for many, many years a slaughterhouse on the other side of the river in Brighton. But I very much supported this project from the beginning. And there's still, some of what you talked about at the beginning, I still see many things that I think are very exciting in this. But I do think that increasing the height of this building is not good for this town. Some of us are concerned about, if only, and some of us are concerned about this, is the effect that it have on our park, on our snow park, our park and our playground. Now that park has over the years developed a number of people who go there, some of them on a daily basis. And I would hate to see any shadow that it casts in the mornings drive those people away and to other parks we have that are already overcrowded. So that would be my main concern. But again, it seems to me there's been a little backing away from the original idealism the last couple of years. And for you, perhaps that's just because reality asserting itself, which it always does. But again, I think it just seems a little desperate. And when it was first proposed, a lot of us said, okay, well they're losing interest. They want to sell and get out. I don't know. That's what it looks like. It seems kind of desperate. And I don't think it's good for the town.
I'd like to guess that. Sorry, I have laryngitis. I've been sick for a week, but between idealism and desperate, I can't resist jumping up. So we're hardly desperate. We've been desperately working to close the loan over the course of the last 6 months, which, as Andrew said, we did 10 days or so ago. So that's a great relief to get us started. And of course, started, like it or not, is demolishing the 1983 mall. In terms of idealistic, one of the most idealistic things about our plan, going back 3+ years ago, and it was a series of things going 2.5 or so years ago, was the opening up, by tearing down that which is now being torn down, opening up this property to your park. I don't think that there's a lot of people who've been using that park, certainly the eastern edge of that park. That was a orphaned park. I can use fancier words or we can sugarcoat it, but that park, which was redone 40 years ago, hasn't had a lot of time and money spent on it in the time since. Our plan, taking down buildings from this historic building, which is Marshall's is right here, you're sitting in a room here, and this is the, let's see, that was the old Navy, this was the old Gulf Town, Home Depot off here. So we had a big building that is in the process of being torn down here, and the underpass over to Home Depot, just to make sure you're oriented. We're tearing down all of that. It'll be gone in a matter of a few more weeks. One of the reasons we're tearing it down is that there's this fabulous park back there that's been unutilized. And our enlightened self-interest, I don't back away from self-interest. Our enlightened self-interest is getting this park to be redone. Until we came along, that park was not being touched. And as of this day, the town still hasn't committed to a nickel being spent on that park. So if you have complaints about this park and where it stands, you should talk to your town representatives. And I'm not particularly happy that they haven't committed to what they're gonna spend on this, I think it's 14 acres, 11 or 14 acres. It's a big park. But this area right in here, as Tom has pointed out, is a very public area on our land, and then opens up to this being redone. We're very proud of that, and that's very idealistic, sir. Now, this is a taller building. We're gonna argue for a few weeks or months about a taller building versus a 130-foot versus 197. And Andrew, I would only correct you, it's not a little taller, it's 50% taller. There's no doubt about that. 130, 197, that's 50% taller. We're not backing away from that. I said in meetings like this 2 years ago, I thought 130 feet was the wrong number, and that we were gonna take a further look at it, but we were paying attention to lots of other things, which is what we've been doing, and that we would come back if we thought a taller building made sense. There are some planning board members in this room who, I'm not blaming them, I'm crediting them. 9 months ago, when we gained permission to do the F building, at the end of that meeting, they said, because we had talked a lot about this and the context here in this building F final approval, they said that building could be taller if you could make it smaller in its footprint to make this space better. That's what we did. We didn't do it because the planning board said do it, because those were anecdotal comments by planning board members. We did it because we think it's better. So, idealistic? Yes. Taller building, are we gonna sell a condo on the 18th floor, the 17th floor, the 16th floor for more money than the 4th floor?
Oh, yeah.
How much? How much?
Yes, you are.
Of course, okay? We are not a not-for-profit company, okay? We're risking $400 million here. We invested $100 million 5 years ago, and we've been investing 4.5 years of time and energy since. We're very proud of where we are, and we're very grateful for the approvals that we've gotten over the period of a long period of time. We're also proud of 2 existing buildings that we've done very recently in this town. There are some people who argue that the Marriott Residence Inn is too contemporary looking building. We're gonna argue about that for a long period of time. I happen to like it. I think we get less arguments about the Lynx office building, which is turned into a lab building over on Nichols behind. It's a really snazzy building. And we're very proud to have brought 5 biotech tenants from Cambridge, 4 of them from Cambridge, 1 from Waltham, into Watertown. We're proud of what we've done so far. We're proud of the approvals we've gotten to do all this. And a number of people over the course of the last month or 2 said, if you guys go away on this plan, then we have less trust in what's gonna happen. So we said, we're not gonna go away. We're going to be involved in the development of this building so that we can be Eric's drawings, the renderings, this rendering. The only thing I can pretty much guarantee you is that the building's not gonna look like that. It would be as tall as this, it would be as thin as this, it would be like this, but it'll be different. Because the chances that PCA is gonna be hired by the people that we're gonna get in bed with on the development side of this condo is not high. It's not impossible, but it's not high. You're gonna have all kinds of official and unofficial opportunity, excuse me, to go over whatever the building that is put in front of you. What this is the beginnings of is the building better instead of here to here, is it better here? It's a very fair debate. It's a very fair debate. We're very happy to have it. The only thing I regret is that we didn't get the room big enough, and that's our fault. I'm sorry about that. You guys have to stand in the back. But in terms of idealistic, we've been idealistic. We have to be idealistic. We're in a crazy business. We have to dream this stuff up. And then we come before public meetings and we get our brains beaten in. And we still go forward. And it's worked out, actually.
Wow.
That's what people say. So I just wanted to answer, thank you. I just wanted to answer this man's point. And I'm gonna turn it back to Andrew because I think the fair thing to do is to go, let everyone get a combination of a question, because we're happy to answer straightforward questions if there are, and we're happy to listen to the opinions, because that's what we're trying to do.
Correct.
Andrew, we need to take them all across.
Hi, I'm Nick. I live on Cottage Street in the east side of Watertown, and I came to pretty much throw in my support behind the project. I think that to make it worth its while, you should probably build as much as you can in that area. And also, just going back to my recollection in my life, and I haven't been in Watertown as long as some, but this area has always kind of been a little bit of a letdown, just as a mall and as a park. And to sort of try to contextualize or put a little perspective on like someone's view being affected compared to, the opportunities that this complex might provide for other people in the community. I think that you kind of have to take the good with the bad a little bit, and we're very lucky to be where we are. And if the view changes a little bit, I think that's a little bit of such is life, sort of. Things change, and I hope that this area changes a lot in the future. So, thanks.
The gentleman behind you.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. When you opened it up, you talked about the benefits of the change, which would be widening the space between the two buildings, opening up the access to the park, making it a little easier for traffic to get in and out. But you didn't mention until later in the presentation, and then Bill reaffirmed it, was that there is a financial benefit to Boylston Properties for this effort, right? That you are going up 4 or 5 stories higher, which will make there 122 units, some of them more. Can you give us some sense of what the cost of these condos will be now if we kept it as it is, and what the cost might be if you move them up higher?
That's a very difficult question to answer, only because it depends on a variety of economic conditions. Unfortunately, this building, whether it's that building or the building we are proposing, is probably 24 to 36 months away from being on the market. And we just don't know where interest rates are, where employment is. The only thing that I can be certain of are what those affordable units are going to cost. I can't tell you what those market rate units are.
You can speak to the market rate of Assembly Square Mall, which there they went from about $500,000 to 1.5 million. So just, put it out there. That can all shift, Andrew, but,
That is correct, but again, I can't speak to that product type, I can't speak to those finishes, I can't speak to that size, I can't speak to the parking arrangements.
And they have transportation.
I can't, yes, and they have an Orange Line stop, that is correct. So I unfortunately, I can't answer that. Okay, thank you. Yes.
Tim Tracy. I just think the answer to that question, no one knows what the price is going to be, but on the 18th, 17th, 16th floor is going to cost a higher price than the 4th floor, but
Correct.
You're going to get more tax revenue for your dollars, okay?
Correct.
And that's something I'm concerned about coming into the town. The coffers need to be replenished, and tax revenue is a great opportunity for that way, and I think these projects add to that.
Well, and again, in your handout, the last page, we have done a summary of the 4 projects that we have done. And I think the impacts that those developments have had on Watertown and the tax base. And again, I think that's a fair point in today's environment. Yes.
Hi there, John Lavadini. I grew up on Beechwood Ave, right over next to Perkins, and I just want to say, a little perspective here. You drive around through Arlington, Everett, you see a casino going on, right? I looked at a nuclear power plant, an ugly tower, and I was in what's now called timeout if I was on this property. So it's been undervalued, and I've been fortunate. I've had a lot of bosses that wanted me to succeed. This team, I hope you make a fortune, because if you make a fortune, Watertown's making a fortune. You're not building, and I wouldn't say that to just any team. You look at the engagement and the user-friendliness. I'm telling you folks, pick up the phone, call them, ask a question. They're here to answer questions, and that goes a long way. When we see a next-door neighbor unload their Allied Van Lines truck, we're obviously curious, we're obviously skeptical. I think they've really earned our trust and some of our support with the way they've behaved in this community since they got here. So I support this. Good luck.
Yes.
I'm Leo Martin. I'm a West Ender. So
But I have some involvement in the parks, but,
You have to say who you are.
I know I don't. So, I'm really concerned about the increase in height. I think that sets a precedent in our town. I agree with, it's great to have other point of view, but I don't think I want one that tall in town. I think it'd be, plus you already had an agreement at 135. So I'd like to keep it the way it is, work with what you have, and, if you want more space between building G and building F, you can shrink the footprint of building F a little bit. So there's ways to get to your open space. I know you want to generate money, and you guys have done a great job. Lori's told me a great job you've done in your other buildings. So you've done a great job, but I'm not in favor of increasing that.
The opportunity to reduce the footprint on F is not an opportunity.
That's because you've already got it approved.
Well, it's about making parking work, it's about providing enough square footage for Roche Brothers, which is taking 32,000 square feet. It's
All right.
about providing enough access to get you up and over that retail and in the ramps, and so the footprint of F needs to be as deep as it is.
But you made a point, somebody made a point that
they
they wanted to increase the width, but that would have been a way to do it if you were during the original plan. So, hindsight, I guess it's great if you wait till the last building to be designed, and you want to increase the space between them. The only way to do it is to make the footprint smaller and go higher. So
That's correct.
I just disagree with the
And
idea.
again, as someone who's involved in the park, I can't believe that narrower footprint isn't better at the end of the day for our.
I just don't want that higher building next to the park. But I must admit, you're right, the park has been not in good shape. Scary other part about it is if you selling the park as a big investment, that's going to be a huge selling point for you. It's one of the biggest green spaces we have in town, so it's a big benefit for you to have that green space, whether it's in disuse right now, but disrepair right now, but the goal is to get it fixed up.
Correct.
But I just don't want a higher building next to the park.
Understood. Yes, and I'm sorry, I'll get to you in the back. Yes.
Michelle Krippner, East End, and I'll just say I'm not in favor of this increase. But I have a question, considering the fact that you have a 2.0 FAR and you're only just over one, slightly over one at this point with the plan, what's our guarantee that other buildings on your site will not go beyond 130 feet, besides building J?
Well, I think the plan that you see here provides very little opportunity for some additional height. We do own one arsenal, which is off of the map and is at the corner of what is now Forge Road. That could be an opportunity for some additional height. We're not gonna hide from that fact. There are only, the way that the zoning amendment is written, there are only 2 sites in Watertown that would qualify to be 10 acres within the RMUD, and that is our site here and the Watertown Mall across the street. So from the perspective of height, yes, the height would be limited to those 2 sites and contained within the RMUD in the east end of Watertown.
But if you get the approval, then it does allow you to have other buildings go beyond 130 other than G.
And it would, we would be back in front of the community and back in front of the town to talk about that. And if there was the kind of demand and the kind of interest generated in this site at this end of town, maybe the opportunity to put another building, another for sale building in is an opportunity. We can't say, and I certainly can't speak to what the Watertown Mall across the street would do from that perspective.
Now, Andrew, I'm getting confused. Are you talking about putting another building within this footprint, or you're
No,
talking about
no.
adding height over above Miller's Ale House?
The only other opportunity that would be within the RMUD that's in the site, and I think her question was, how do I know you're not going to put another building? Because all of this footprint within the site is taken up by, as Bill said, a $400 million investment and an equity partner in JP Morgan, who is not going to allow us to come in and tear down something that we've just spent tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars constructing.
At this point, though, the other buildings that are in your plan, you could propose an amendment to increase the height of those buildings that are already in the plan, right?
We could.
Not a new building, but
We
existing
could, but
buildings.
I will stand here and tell you that we will not propose an amendment to put any additional height on either A, B, C, D, E, or F. This gentleman right here?
Yes. I'm Steve Stedman, I'm also East Watertown. So coming back to what, way back to the meeting with Marilyn Devaney said, I am concerned about the materials that you're using. And I noticed that you say you have a preference for using concrete and so on. What concerns me is there's this whole movement to build, high rises out of wood. And as you know, the hotel you put up is wooden construction.
Correct.
And I would be, personally, I feel it's, you could put sprinklers in, but that doesn't actually, that's only for the purpose of slowing down fires so that people can get out,
Correct.
We've had some pretty big fires around the Boston area, these wood high rises. I would hope you would say it's not just a preference for concrete, but it really has to be really needs to be fireproof.
In high-rise construction in Massachusetts, the way that the current building code is written, anything over 70 feet, and the buildings you're referring to are all less than 70 feet. And this building here at 197 feet would be one of really two things, either structural steel or cast-in-place concrete. Those are really the only two structural systems that the code allows. And the movement to build in wood is one that has taken hold in Europe and in Australia. And cross-laminated timber is the system. Code doesn't recognize that. It may not recognize that for another 5 or 10 years. We can debate whether or not it's an appropriate structure for anything over 70 feet. I will say that the Europeans tend to be on sort of the cutting edge of some of the building technology. So the Swedes, the Finns, the Australians, we'll see what they do and how that works.
All right. This building is 2 minutes on, kind of explaining what high-rise construction really involves and why it's different.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew started to say, anything over 70 feet requires a number of things. First of all, you can't build a building out of wood. It's got to be out of steel. All of the finishes of the building are non-combustible. There's extra protection provided for firefighters in the stairways. Building F next door, in fact, is also over 70 feet that we're doing the documents for right now. That building's a non-combustible building, a steel building. We have no plans to build these buildings out of wood whatsoever.
The other, just a quick thing, I know this is just more of a sketch, but I would think we'd want to put balconies on some of these lower floors. Because
there are balconies, and you might have missed them. And again, we believe that the opportunity, and again, we're showing some balconies on, this is the southern elevation. There could be some balconies here, there could be some here. It just sort of is, this is a typical floor. And if we got up to 12 or 14, we might have balconies on all the units. But we will end up doing something like that. So are we done with this side of the room? All right, I'll move over here.
She's got here, right here.
One more.
You have one more here.
I just have a question about what's the definition of affordable housing? If you don't know what the rates will be.
Sure.
How do you know that they will be affordable?
We will work with the Watertown Affordable Housing Partnership, who assists us in designating those units. The affordable housing calculation is based on area median income, something called AMI. That is a rate, if you will, that's set really at the state level. So for the purposes of this example, if the area median and we would have some number of 1/3 of the units would be at 65% of AMI, and the other 2/3 would be at 80% of AMI. And then it depends on the number of people in that household. But an affordable unit, again, in a couple of years we'll look at AMI, but an affordable one-bedroom unit in this building is probably somewhere between $170,000 and $200,000. And again, that rate is not set by us. That rate is set with the Watertown Affordable Housing Partnership and the area median income.
So then are those extremely small units?
No, we have to build those units to look exactly like the market rate units.
Okay.
If we are 50-50 ones and twos, 50% of my affordables are one bedroom, 50% of my two bedrooms are affordable. So there is, and the finishes on the inside are the same. We, those units, if I brought you into an affordable unit or a market rate unit, you couldn't tell the difference.
My original question was, if the tall building is such a good idea, why didn't you propose it to begin with? But it sounded as if you were saying that you always said from the beginning that you plan to modify the original
Yes, I
design?
think a couple of years ago, when we were having these same discussions, and the height of that building was set at 130 feet, I think Boylston was quite clear that, you know what, good, it's 130 feet. We really want to make sure we focus on the other 6 buildings. We'd like to come back and talk about improving G. And it's important to sort of note that throughout the process, as we have, as the market has changed, as we have gotten involved, and as Tom has leased stuff, that we have made some subtle or some dramatic changes to each of the buildings. For example, the F building had 2 stories of residential on top. We were able to make it 6 feet taller, but get in a whole other floor of additional units. So again, there is a process by which we work with the planning department, and we work with the planning board, and get to what we think are the right decisions. And to Bill's earlier point, I think that if you look at the things that Boylston has developed, and they have not been developed in a vacuum, they've been developed with input, like at these community meetings. We're quite proud of those buildings. And again, architecture, is some people like some buildings and some people don't. But again, we think that through a very robust process, we've developed some pretty nice stuff.
There's 2 other changes that Andrew, who joined us 6 or so months ago, he's been involved in planning the multifamily part of Arsenal Yards for a couple of years as a consultant, but did such a great job. We were happy to have him on the team. But we had originally had, and some of you could probably remember, a rendering of the cinema on the 2nd floor of the area where it is now on the ground floor. It was the Golf Town. We had it up as the 2nd floor. We thought that was a brilliant idea. All kinds of things happened in our world that didn't become such a brilliant idea anymore, and it went down to the ground level. We had 87 additional apartments where we now have a 2nd hotel, the Hilton Hampton Inn, in the front of the B building. That was a year and a half or 2 years ago. A variety of things happened. We evolved, and we decided to do another hotel there. So our process is not, it's not even 2 years ago that we absolutely knew we were going to come back with a higher building in G. We didn't know enough. I mean, you can't give us that much credit. This process between what we're involved with in boards and the marketplace tells us things, it pushes things, etc. The retail business, Tom used to have a big head of hair. It's really tough to lease retail space and find retailers who are ambitious and willing to sign leases, etc., etc. It only took 9 months to sign a lease with Roach Brothers. I mean, it's a 532-page lease. It's daunting. It's incredible. So the evolution of how we get to G and talking to you about it, the idea that it's some sort of cunning plan by those wizards of Boylston Properties, sorry, we're not there yet. And so it's meeting the marketplace, it's listening to people, it's looking at the plan, it's trying to figure out something that is better. Better for us? No doubt about it. Better as the plan? Yes. Better for people who are going to use Arsenal Park? We didn't know. We had talked conceptually about Arsenal Park being redone 2 or 3 years ago. But only, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago, the town got engaged and hired a designer to talk about the Arsenal Park. Well, you can get more excited about Arsenal Park when you start to see some plans along that. You can get more excited about what should be beside and abutting and adjacent to Arsenal Park. We didn't have all this part of what we call the river green scoped out, which would be, so here's Marshall's, here's the end of this building where we're tearing it down. This is going to be a very, very cool space. We only knew it as an open air space before. It becomes more attractive. We see more opportunity, more hope there. Do we get more excited about this? Absolutely. Over here, in the green shirt. Tom.
Okay. I guess we've talked enough. I've been in this part of this process since the beginning with the RMUD.
which certainly the plan was a variety of building heights. And as you know, I've been advocating for a taller building on this lot for a long, long time. I completely knocked out of the park with the footprint. I really love that. The concept drawing is great. I couldn't have, well, I can't say I couldn't have hoped for a better building. And I'd certainly take some of the money from the premium units and put it into essentially for us, if we don't live there, is outdoor sculpture is what we're looking at. And so what's going to look better? I think that this one looks better. I was at the back of Arsenal Park just this week. It was very exciting. Took a photo where the greenway, the riverway, is going to open up. So you can start to see that sky over by Arsenal. There's so many great amenities here. Being in a butter, I'm happy about that. In terms of the Watertown Mall, my understanding is that the mall is locked up in long-term leases, and I don't think we're going to see another tall building in Watertown for a long, long time. I hope we can come up with a good name for it, and hopefully it's not like the Awful Waffle or something. That I was hoping for a design that was so modern there would be equal parts of hate and love. This one's kind of in the middle. I would urge the town council to approve this. I think it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. So woman in the red shirt right behind you.
Hi. Kate Coyne, Central Watertown? Central. I guess. Yeah, I have a couple of questions. First one is apartments or condos?
Condominiums.
Okay. And the second one is how much of the town is committed to Arsenal Park versus how much of you guys committed to Arsenal Park? Number, please.
Yeah, I'll answer that question. You heard me say earlier, the town has committed not a nickel. And if you can tell that I'm not happy about that, you're correct.
And neither of them.
Yeah. So.
How about proposed?
What's that?
How about proposed? Did they propose?
Town hasn't said a word.
Okay.
Town is so far unable or unwilling to commit. We have said that with a taller building, we can commit more money. We've not made a commitment as to how much money we can commit for anything. We have committed to the fact that we will be making a contribution to the redo of the park. So if that sounds like a multitude of non-answers, I'm sorry about that, but the plan, as more recently designed, more recently sort of fomented by the town, is in the process, I think, of a very preliminary pricing. But I think it's a couple of $1 million to redo the plan.
Well, and so they had an open house, which we went by on June 13th before the planning board meeting, and the proposal now is to take that design, which they have showed to the community, and have the designer do 25% design drawings, which then would allow them to go out and get construction pricing on those documents. How long that takes and how much that costs, we don't have the bills for, we don't have an idea, but we are as interested, even excluding what's going on at G, for all of these buildings and this connection and how it touches that park. It's as important to us as it is to you.
Walk to the back of the park and start to look at the view as they tear down that building. All that concrete you see is going to be grass or park area in any case.
Correct, and that footprint that's
well,
coming
not quite,
down.
it's green space
all
there. Well, some of it. Well, no, the corridor down the front. Yeah.
You all set?
No. I just have one more thing. Thank you. So I do have concerns about the height also, because of affect on the town in general. I know there's only so many places currently that you can build a larger, which is good. I work in the Seaport. I work in the Canyon Town. I know how it is down there. So Shadow City. But this, I'm not trying to make you guys out to be that, because there's a lot of good here too. That was my statement.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I grew up in East Watertown. I support this project. We've been asking for a more modern town since I was a kid. I miss 1986. I miss Ames. It's over. This is the future. It's all
How about
over.
Bradley's and Hope?
Bradley's is across the street. I wasn't gonna. This is exciting. Taller, better. I'd be very proud to say this is the town I grew up in. My one question: if you make a smaller footprint, how will that help environmentally with rain runoff? If you have the same amount of people living in a smaller area.
Well, I think that, again, we've creating less impervious surface. We think it's better from a stormwater management standpoint. So that big wide footprint is almost 15,000 square feet of roof and things. And this smaller footprint allows, again, for more green space and for more stormwater management, which again, we have in our original design, have planned for. As a matter of fact, I think some of the construction that you see going on in front of where the old Navy entrance was actually the start of that underground detention system. So, yes, all the way in the back.
Hi, I'm Daniel. I live on Putnam Street, and probably be able to see the building from our house. I was curious about I was really glad to see the reapportionment of unit types. Just from the point of view of a young person who has a new family, a lot of my friends have new families. A lot of them are living in like one-bedroom splits with their toddlers because they can't afford daycare and to move out to the suburbs and all that. So I'm glad to see a lot more multi-bedroom units. But that will increase the number of residents, will it not? Because it's the same number of units, but more of them have more bedrooms. Am I getting that math incorrectly?
Well, it could, sure. A studio unit might hold 1 or 2 people, and a 3-bedroom unit could hold 4 people. So yes, okay, that's correct.
I just want to make sure I was doing that in my head. And we're talking about sort of balancing, the relationship between the town of Boylston. I mean, I'm really happy about this development. I'm really excited for it to come in. I'm curious about whether, rather than investing in the park, which I would love, is there any opportunity to invest in more affordable housing? Because I think, what I want to see is some downward pressure to control this market. And these new high-level units are going to set a new standard against which, other units in the area are going to be better. So it's going to inch up that price a little bit more. It's going to shut out more people I know who have college degrees and make good money by any standard except in Boston. And, it's tough.
Well, unfortunately, they probably wouldn't qualify for an affordable unit. Because at 65 and 80% of AMI, you're limited. Between buildings C, D, F, and then this condo building, we have created 45 affordable rentals and would be creating another 19 affordable condominium units. I believe we have the highest affordable percentage
15%
in town at 15%. Previous projects, whether in West Watertown or even just down the street, were at 10 or 12.5%. So, we think we've brought a lot of affordability to the
Absolutely.
project.
Your question, Andrew just gave you the capital A affordable answer. You were looking for the small case A.
Sure was.
I'm not an economist, and I don't play one on TV. We can have lots of arguments about this, but if the demand is incredible and the supply is restrained, I know what happens to price. And I remember that in the fog of my freshman year of Economics 101, Mr. Samuelson. Increasing the supply is one of the methods by which price will be somewhat addressed. As your town gets more and more desirable, I don't have to tell you what happens. More people want to move into Watertown. This overall project is going to make it more desirable. I'm sorry. We can make it less desirable, but I don't think that's what you want me to do. So those are sort of big economic things, and more units, the fact that we have 300 rental units, the fact that there's 600 down the street new, I think that's helping, but
It is. It absolutely is. But it's more of the, that is definitely more of the long-term art. Samuelson, MIT. I work in it. So that's the long-term art. I'm really thinking about the short-term sort of, like the 15% affordable, which is relatively new, which is, a great thing, and I'm glad to see it. And I think if we're thinking about changing the allowance for the building and allowing you guys to make more money, which is great. And you're talking about reinvesting some of that into the park now, which would also be great. I would prefer to see it invested in some small A affordable housing, some kind of system by which people can put in an application. I don't know how that works, but it would be great to see. I think it would create some downward pressure on the market. I think that's really important right now. We're in a capital C crisis. You can forget that when you own a home like I do, and I'm very fortunate to, but it's bad. It's bad.
I get it. Sir, the green shirt.
As we all know, as residents of Watertown, traffic. You mentioned talk about traffic. Now, are you just talking about traffic within the your area here. And I'm sorry, my name is Eric Boyd. I live in one of the houses closest to the arsenal. I watched the hotel go up floor by floor. I'm very concerned about traffic. So my concern is, are you just talking about the traffic that's within your facility? We see things going on Arsenal Street, your beautiful new Link building, I watched that be built. The old Ionics building on Grove Street, we see it. I've got traffic going by my house now at 4:30 in the morning, heavy truck, and it gets pretty annoying. And, you know, I appreciate what you're doing here. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I think it's good for Watertown, but my concern is traffic.
First of all, thank you for your positive comments about what we've done and what this overall project should do. Whether this is a taller building or a smaller building, it's the exact same footage. It'll be the same amount of traffic. There's no difference in the traffic. There is more traffic. Our overall project is going to bring more traffic. If it doesn't, we're in trouble. And we're spending $2 million in a contribution to the town to improve Arsenal Street traffic. New lights, new mechanisms, new timing, new curbs, new widths. You know, there's a big plan along Arsenal Street. And that's been vetted over the course of a couple of years through the planning department, their own traffic consultants, our traffic consultants, et cetera. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that the traffic is a panacea. I live in this, I don't live in Watertown, I live in Greater Boston. It's a mess. All traffic's lousy. Right? You used to be able to lease space by saying, their traffic's lousy, mine's great. All traffic's lousy.
What town do you live in?
I used to live in Brookline and now live downtown Boston. I'm not going to change the fact that we all have too many cars and blah, 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 and that our roads aren't wide enough and all that sort of stuff, but we're not Southern California, and we're not going to change some of that stuff. Arsenal Street actually, we feel, moves along pretty well. Now, Elm Street, the hotel, and I don't know exactly where you live, sir, but I don't know. Some of this is there's good and there's bad. There is increased traffic. There's an enormous increase in tax revenue to the town. I know that the school department has been both granted over the last several years and promised for the next bunch of years 5.5% increase in the school budget. That doesn't come from the trees. That comes from development. We're part of that. I think we're the second largest taxpayer in the town now, and we obviously weren't when we started these things. You know, the hotel generates almost $1 million a year in revenue to the town. When it was the car dealership, it was $73,000, so it's a 12 multiple on that. I think it's a triple or almost a quadruple at the Lynx building and what the taxes are versus what they were. So these are trade-offs. We make trade-offs all the time, and if the town doesn't want those trade-offs, then the town voices that. You know, we don't get everything we want, no doubt about it. So, but that's part of it. I appreciate your comments. So, other questions in here? Yes.
My name is Tom. I'm open. Don't you think it's a little bit of an overkill to rezone this entire area so that you can go 6 more stories on one building?
Well, Bob, that's a good question. We originally thought about doing it just on our site, and others said you should do it on a wider site, not just on our site, so that we weren't viewed as, I don't know, short-sighted or you know, it was others who suggested we do it wider.
Wasn't it?
Somewhere in the middle here.
Back here?
Yes, Joe. Joe, go ahead.
My name is Dennis Stuff.
Dennis, excuse me.
And I believe I'm the only one here who was a member of the Watertown Redevelopment Authority that's responsible for this site. And personally, I'm responsible for the park. The park was a 3-2 vote. That was the 3rd vote. So I have a little knowledge about the park. It's 13, I think, .78 acres. It's hard to know because when they gave us the measurements and the acreage to vote on it, and then the plan came in, the two didn't match, so I don't remember now what came up.
Speak up, Dennis.
Okay. Other cities and towns, Arlington, Belmont, Newton, what's the tallest buildings they have? Do they have anything as tall as this monstrosity?
I can't answer. We will find out. We will find out.
But, you know,
I believe there's
And,
a...
one reason I'm against this building is the town of Watertown. We had the city known as the town of Watertown. In the past, when the government was changed for the betterment of the citizens, we kept town in there, and all night here, you and you knew people, you never said the city, you said the town. Well, what makes up a town? Obviously, all of us, municipalities, the schools, the fire, the police, town employees, et cetera, the neighborhoods. One thing Watertown really lacks,
Neighborhoods.
and I've been fighting it for 50 years. I used to make the mistake of saying open space. As a member of the Redevelopment Authority, I was embarrassed when I thought we were gonna get a big hunk of open space. We consulted with Sasaki, and they said, oh yeah, they're gonna give you 25, 30% open space. Well, you can't say open space, people. You have to say green open space.
Green.
Because when the development was done and I said, where's all this great open space? Well, they pointed to the parking lots. It's a disgrace. But the one thing that bothers me about this park is it's gonna be their park, not our park. All those residents are gonna be using that park, and we won't be able to use it as much as we should. People talk about the upkeep and so forth. That park was designed to be a passive park. There are a lot of active parks in Watertown. Softball, baseball, little league, basketball, on and on. But this park was supposed to be different. Supposed to be if you wanted to come with your family, sit down and have a picnic, kick a ball around, no organized sports. And for me, I would like to see them blocked off from easy access from the building, so that the citizens can use it. Why? So the citizens can use it, because you're gonna go down there and go.
They're gonna be citizens.
They're gonna be citizens. They're residents.
Right. But you won't get in there.
Why not?
Let's let him please have his say.
Right? You'll get in there, but I don't want to sit like this having a picnic with you or him or that one. I want a little space. And will it be parking charge
No.
to go to the park?
Parking is free, no.
That's great. Okay, that's good. And will dogs be prohibited?
Dogs will be encouraged. I have a dog, Moose.
And I don't want to take up everyone's time and everyone's business.
Happy to answer any other questions.
Okay, I have one other. When we started this process, and I've dealt with developers obviously in the past, you talked about all these great 2- and 3-story buildings. Can you show me where they are in relation to the larger buildings?
2-story buildings. This is a 1-story building.
Okay, thank you.
This is a 6-story building and a 5-story building. This remains a 2-story building. This is the building we're in right now. We're
Right.
a 2-story building. This is a 8-story building. 8-story building, 6, 1 level of retail, 3 levels of parking on top of it, 4 levels. 4 levels of parking on top of it. So it's actually
Varied, but
it's varied.
2
It's
and
very
3
varied.
are in the minority.
Someone wanted it to be varied a long time ago. So, a combination of some planning board members and some others thought that multiple heights made some sense. Thanks, Dennis. Do you have a question, ma'am? Go ahead.
I think what you're doing looks really nice, especially when you look at it just in the context of there. But if you look at that building in the context of the whole town, it's really tall, and especially when the trees are not covered with green, I mean, you're gonna see that building, and it's there by itself. And I've lived places where, for years, people have said, how did we ever let that one tall building go up? Because it so dramatically changes the character and just the sense of where you are. And just having that there by itself so tall feels just like it's a beautiful building, but it's maybe not in the right setting.
First of all, that's a great opinion. It's perfectly fair and a balanced view, and I appreciate you sharing it. What I could add to that is on Coolidge Avenue, probably 40-year-old buildings, if I had to bet. They certainly look like they were sort of 1970s, maybe early 80s. probably mid-70s. Those 8 or 9-story apartment buildings there beside the Mount Auburn Health Club are 8 or 9 stories. And so they're 80 or 90 feet tall or something like that. And actually, I think Andrew did a little bit of research. They represent 55,000 square feet of plan, and I think there's 2 different ones. 55,000 square feet on the ground, going up 8 or 9 stories. Those are tall buildings, and actually, they make people tallest. They're certainly one of the tallest in Watertown right now. With all due respect to whoever built them, and our design sensitivity in 2018, and I don't mean our group, I mean the communities. I mean the designers, I mean the planners, I mean everyone cares more about it. They recognize that that may have been a mistake. You can't change that, and it blocks off the view to the river, and it's it's not the most attractive thing. We're just better. The processes are better, probably tougher and more strident about that which gets improved. To build a tall building, it's going to have to be very attractive, and there will be perfect debate about how tall and when it's attractive enough. And 1010 Memorial Drive is a building that's right beside Mount Auburn Hospital, which is I think 20 stories tall, and is also 70s or 80s, and it's 9 times more attractive than the stuff on Coolidge Avenue, in my opinion. A lot of people can talk about it, but that's a tall, slender building, and those are the kinds of debates that are perfectly good to have. And we're perfectly fine to be thrown into that briar patch about, is that good enough? But the sorts of things, when you look at that building on Coolidge Avenue, the amount of glass that is now done in all kinds of buildings like this is an enormous percentage larger than that which was done back then. And maybe the budgets weren't available to them at the time. Maybe the technology wasn't available, all kinds of reasons. But these days, we would be pushed, we would be required, we would desire to do a better looking building. Taller, even whether it's 130 feet tall or 160 feet tall or 190 feet tall, we're going to do the best building we can.
I understand what you're saying. It still is there by itself.
No doubt. Yeah, I get that. Elodia.
I have a question.
Oh, Elodia has something to say.
Well, I have a couple questions. First of all, if you're born and bred in Watertown, would you raise your hand? I'm just trying to get a handle on that. Okay, so. Okay, not born, but raised in Watertown. Let's say that.
It's irrelevant.
What? Well, no, it is. No, it's not irrelevant because we all come from different perspectives. And because we're a very diverse town in terms of ethnicity, in terms of economics, etc., we bring all our individual perspectives to this project. We just do.
What was your second question?
Education, whatever. I have more, but I'm not going to take up the time. Marilyn, you talked about fire for a while. Okay, so for those of you that don't know me, I went, for example, to look at Tom Wilder's project in Rhode Island. I went to look at his project up in Burlington. He does amazing work, and it's a classy project. For those who do the meetings way back in the beginning, the only thing that threw me was the Singing Rocks down in Rhode Island. But I see this commitment to the balance in what he's gone through to try to bring in the right retail. Realize that further down on Arsenal by the Gables, we have empty storefronts there. A grocery store was going to go in. A Trader Joe's was going to go in. Everything was going to happen. These people have made a commitment to the full package. I think it's very critical to think about that. 2, my other thing is, how many of you have seen the Lynx building? Anybody in this room? 1, 2, great, fantastic. This really excites me.
The one that's there, right? The new one.
Yeah, the new Lynx building. It is stunning. I bugged them to say, hey, how about a tour? Because I think you need to see what I consider cutting edge architecture. Angie will say, no, you're wrong, Elodia, but that's okay. It's a difference of opinion given where we come from. But the quality of the work really stands out. This is not a fly-by-night organization that's just trying to stick something in here. They're building a great project, in my opinion. It's a quality project, and they deserve to make money on that project. So while we have lots of different opinions, I think we need to take the big gestalt picture here and think about this. That's all I'm going to say for now.
Gestalt, you're using the fancy words. The fancy words gets me to 2 final questions. Go ahead.
I guess in with Olivia, how did the hotel get to be so not modern, not glass, not beautiful? I'm curious
Talk about
that.
residents or the new hotel being built now?
No, the one that's across the street that's done. It's not, I don't know, whatever it is. And
So I
the other
put you in the
thing
column,
is
you don't
that-
like that building, that you in that
I
column.
certainly don't.
Good, you got that.
And I suggested that it be taller and glassier. And, but we judge what's going to come in the future by what the organization has done in the past.
Yeah.
And I'm not thrilled.
Yeah, I
with
get
the
that.
potential.
I get that.
And so the other question is, again, why are we doing zoning throughout the entire RMUD? And I don't know if spot zoning enters into the equation or what, instead of just the building
So
here.
I already answered that question. Ma'am.
So my eye is drawn to the back, the mural on the back wall, and the tall building all the way to the right. And I'm wondering if anybody knows what that building is and how tall it is, because I can see how it differs from the rest of the landscape. And I can see where we are way down here.
That Huron Tower was my friend on golf course.
Do we know how tall that is? So that gives some perspective about how it would look standing up in Watertown.
It is 8 o'clock.
I have a question.
We did have a couple of spoken. Go ahead. We did have a couple.
I would like to suggest that in order to actually see more concretely how these things stack up, that you make a really nice big model, so that we can actually see how this thing is standing in relation to that.
Well, that's, in the old days, that's exactly what we would do. In the new days, which are coming over the course of the next bunch of weeks, we actually do it electronically. And not just with a still render, a single shot like this, but we are able to move you around the buildings on these screens. And we can do the A and the B, and we can do it from all kinds of different perspectives, and we can do it sort of infinitely. And we already have that. We probably haven't put that in, but we have all of the rest of the buildings that way, and we will. There's no doubt, as we get into longer process and the more formal process, that will be required.
But I still think that an actual wooden or whatever plan, where you can, on a flat screen is one thing, but you actually be able to see how high that tower is going to be compared to others.
I think if we walk you through what Bill just talked about.
Excuse me, thank you. I just wanted to, I have to make 3 short points. First of all, we have real estate people here who could tell us in today's market what those condos would go for, but you can't give us that number. Okay, so now the other thing is, people are objecting to the height of the building. It doesn't fit, it isn't Boston, okay? And that's what we're concerned on. We're losing our neighborhoods, and that does tower over our neighborhoods, it does. And the other thing is, you're telling us about all this revenue. I've lived here all my life. I voted for the Arsenal Park. I voted for a lot of things. I voted against Pleasant Street, okay? But I'll tell you something. We were promised, when we sold, and I didn't have a vote, unfortunately, it was taken away from me, autonomous board sold the Arsenal. And we were told, oh, our taxes would go down. Biggest parcel in Watertown, in the history of Watertown. And our home taxes didn't, real estate taxes didn't go down $1. So if you're trying to sell me that this is going to bring down my taxes, no matter what you're doing, it doesn't affect our taxes, okay? And we have lost our neighborhoods. I could cry what has happened. And I'm just saying, you've got a 197-foot building. I can't even imagine in Watertown. We're 4 square miles. Can't even get up Arsenal Street now, and we're not even done. So I'm just saying, don't promise me this stuff, okay?
Councilor Canellis, please, the final word, why not?
Thank you.
Thanks,
Certainly,
Andrew.
you wouldn't want a meeting to go by without my adding my 2 cents. And Andrew asked me to come forward with the first question. And I don't want to offer a question this evening. Full disclosure, and I wanted to make sure that everybody here had the opportunity to speak both pro and con. So full disclosure is, I did not support the 130-foot compromise. I did not have a vote in it, but I did not support it. I did not support the RMUD in all the parcels where it now is acceptable to have the RMUD. I would have accepted the ARMA, as I indicated, for the Arsenal Yards project, but we didn't have any knowledge of how it would work out. It was appropriate to work. People need to be aware that this proposal of 197 feet will now be possible in all the ARMA parcels, not only the Watertown Ma, but on Coolidge Ave and along Arsenal Street. So be aware of
Provision,
those.
Angie, just to correct you, is that it must be a 10-acre parcel.
Yes.
There are only 2 10-acre parcels in the RMA.
Thank you, and for everybody who receives my emails, I did reference according to the criteria as noted in the zoning.
So that reference is different from what you just said.
I'm sorry, thank you for correcting me.
Okay.
And I applaud you for all of your lobbying efforts, for many faces who I see here this evening that I wouldn't customarily see at meetings because they've been lobbied, and I commend you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Make it five parcels, join them.
thank you very much, and we'll see you at additional public meetings. Thank you.
All right,